Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to speak to you both today. Thanks for taking the time. What a movie. I guess the boxing genre is one that has such a, long legacy and history. If you think of, from Rocky to Creed, but you've done something quite different with this movie. I mean, we are so far away from the glamour or even sense of triumph. This is something much darker. So, Sean, maybe you can talk us through what you wanted to do, both maybe paying homage to the genre, but also doing something slightly different.
It came from the fact that I love the boxing genre, but everything had sort of been done before. And I wanted to do a boxing film. I just didn't really know what it was until I read that script. And I was like, this is something I've never seen before in a boxing film. It's actually the mindset of an athlete and the preparation and what somebody's willing to do in order to get the thing done that they love doing. And that was a really interesting angle, I thought. So from that, I suddenly thought this could be a really interesting boxing film.
And this isn't a role we've seen Orlando do before. Sean, did you already have him in mind when you were kind of looking at the script? Was this something quite left field? How did this come about?
Orlando was already attached, so he was somebody that had sort of helped develop it with Mark, and had read previous drafts.
We were very honoured to have Sean consider directing this. Honestly, we were. I remember when Mark called me and said that Sean was reading it, and I was like, "Let's go." So yeah, he thankfully came in and took the reins. Sean's an amazing director, but he's also amazing with lighting and I think one of the things that struck me is that we had a very limited budget for this movie, and we shot we were mostly in one room, in two or three rooms. But I don't think you notice that in the movie so much because of the way that he shot the rooms and the way that he shot the characters in the rooms and the locations. Even with that like harrowing green light in some of it, it really lent itself. So that was something that like, because he's a great DP and he was behind the camera the whole time as well. So he was like really up there, like while we're suffering.
Is that weird for you?
Suffering through.
Is it the first time you've worked with a DP director?
Yeah, it was different.
When you're working as an actor, do you often have that relationship? Do you think the strongest relationship is with the director or with the DP?
No, it's both. It's actually both. Yeah, I mean, a good DP is really critical. So, I mean, it's a niche that you've landed in that's really clever because you're good at both things. But yeah, it was great to have you there like that because it was very personal, and I mean, the movie's very personal, in a unique way. Like you said, it's like a look at like the interior space, the interior mind and physicality of somebody who's willing to push it to, the nth degree. And they had to put up with me being hangry and moody and like paranoid and sweaty and yeah.
And for you, Orlando, I mean, you've been part of some, the biggest, most epic franchises that are out there in cinema. I mean, sort of taking this leap into something that is much more intense, raw, visceral, working with maybe a smaller budget. What made you want to make that shift and take on this role?
I think, like Sean, I've always loved the boxing genre. And I mean, I love Raging Bull, I mean, you see the commitment, even the fighter, you see the commitment of these actors. And I'm quite physical anyway, I think in my approach to the way that I perform, but also in my life. And so like, I felt like, I've seen so many of my peers and great actors kind of like do body transformations and deliver like really like remarkable. I mean, Christian Bale's crushed it so many times, and he's done that so frequently. And even in the Joker, Joaquin was just another being. And I was intrigued to see when a character like Box is written to do anything that it takes to have his second shot at life. It felt like something that I wanted to step into and live in a pain cave. And I don't mind being in a hurt locker every now and again in some ways. So I don't think it lent itself to to what we were trying to do, right?
And the transformation is so extreme and almost unrecognizable, you know, in some of these scenes. So how far back were you having conversations about the prep that would go into this? And what did that even look like?
Well, he wanted to break my nose. We talked about, Sean was like, do you want to break your nose? It's like,
well, I think our first call was that Orlando was so committed that he was like, I could chip my teeth. And then I was like, what about if we surgically had your nose broken? And he was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it.
well, I have broken my nose. I was like, well, it'd be an opportunity to break it back the other way. Maybe we'll straighten it up.
You know, I've just from a time point, I guess we were having those conversations around Christmas, and then we were shooting in May. So, you know, it was probably so it's like a 4 to 5 month prep, where Orlando was obviously boxing and doing a lot of physical work, and you were already on the discussion with your nutritionist and where you were going and what sort of weight goals you were looking at, because Orlando had to come to the set at his lightest, because it's harder to lose weight than it is to put weight back on. And the other thing is, when you're losing weight, you can't concentrate, you're very you have low energy. And so the way that we did it was he would come to us on the first day of filming, and we would film the end of the movie first. And then we would shoot in reverse chronological order. And he would then start to put weight back on as we filmed. And you were obviously very happy about that because he'd been starved of calories for so long. So when he turned up, he was a little bit like, his concentration was very small,
sporadic,
and obviously, but honestly, between takes, I would see him like lie on the floor. He was very low on energy. He was very emancipated, and then obviously after about the third or fourth day, we were starting to get a little bit more into the meat and bones of the last half of the second act, and he was then able to start eating, and then you started eating about 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
It was crazy the amount.
About day 7, I started to we had to, but we also tiered it up. So because there was still some stuff where I was shirtless and weighing, you know, 2 weeks of filming, I was at my lightest, and then about 10 days. And then I had to sort of ramp it up, and it was like ice cream in the shakes and just desserts and just like gluttonous. It was almost as hard as
just my normal lunch day, basically.
I mean, it was really fun. And then it was like, oh man, this is like, you know, because I've been so lean, I was like, felt like I was like ballooning, like, you know, it's weird what it does to your head when you restrict calories like that dramatically. And it definitely leans into what, you know, character requires. It was helpful from that perspective, but it was definitely challenging for sure.
There was you know, quite a lot of prosthetic makeup that Orlando had as well, and that was a really interesting process as well. I thought we spent a couple of days with Mark Coulier, who was the designer for that, and he'd done a head sculpt of you, hadn't he? And so he'd remotely had done like versions of how far we could take it. And it was really interesting to see how far, because, you know, for me, when I first, you know, he's a good looking lad, you know, and so I was like this washed up boxer in his 40s. So, yeah, so we had this, you know, there was a whole different range of noses, and there was a different size cauliflower ears that we could go to. And so we spent a day just trying everything, didn't we?
Yeah.
You had a bald cap as well at one point.
Yeah, we thought about that. We thought about that, didn't we?
So there was you know, we spent a long time trying to figure out what was the right nose, how, you know, in what. But that's what's amazing about it, because the nose changes the face so much, and just that nose that he had, he already looked different at that point. And
yeah, we just sort of added to the bridge a sort of flatter thing that made it look, and it was, yeah.
Apparently Orson Welles always used to wear a nose in every movie he did, to change his look.
Maybe
yeah, as well. She has a different nose for every film apart from The Hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She used her own nose in The Hours.
That's not true.
No.
You mean
that's the only. That's the only film where she had a fake nose.
And I guess in parallel to all that physical transformation, I mean, we're really delving into the psychological side, and especially, through the flashbacks, we're getting that bit of context to what might have led him to where he is when we see him in the present. So how important was that aspect of the preparation, trying to find that emotional state that he's in?
Well, the way that we sort of depict this character, there's some flashbacks that show a little bit of his past and his upbringing. I think that when you think about the sort of punishment that fighters, will put themselves through, we sort of really lent into that for the cut, which is extreme and at times maybe is required for certain people, but we obviously, for the purposes of the movie, really take it to the nth degree. And I think it's about an athlete, just where that desire comes from, to be the best, or to have a shot, or to have a second shot, or to come out of retirement to try and fulfill a dream. And I think that's so relatable to people. It's like, as we age, it's like, did we do everything in life? Have we achieved everything we wanted to achieve? Are we gonna do this? Are we gonna miss the boat? And and that, there's a very poignant scene with Katrina Balfe, who was just amazing to work with, who came in and just brought a whole backstory that made that relationship work so beautifully, I felt. But there's a moment where it's like, where just a very vulnerable moment of like, well, it's like, it's a psychic thing, it's a psychological thing I've got to do this. I can't survive without this. I've got to give it, you just got to get me in that ring, and I think that's so relatable. I think so many people walk through life with that with their dreams, and some of them they've lived, and some of them they haven't. And he's trying to just live that dream, for one last time. The calorie restriction and then even like down to not drinking water for 48 hours before the last 2 days before we started filming was really intense. And I started to have like intrusive thoughts and paranoia and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Because we're built to feed, to eat, and food is a requirement, and so it definitely helped, with the authenticity of it all.
Almost full on method acting in a way. You were actually having to experience the emotions of someone going through that. I guess you almost have to be careful not to take it too far, to not end up in the same.
Well, we had a great doctor. I mean, I wouldn't recommend anyone. I'm trying anything like this particularly, but we had a great nutritionist rather in America, who was like, it was like a science. I mean, like, he tiered me down for 3 months, and then he was very involved with production to make sure that I was eating, and he was on the phone with production all the time, like, has he got this, has he got that, we need to start building him up right now. And there were points, and I'd stand on a scale and send him away every day. I mean, it's amazing how intense it gets when you're like really in it and trying to make the weight, and you're in the character's headspace. And I was working with this young guy who was a almost turned pro boxer, Irish lad, and he lived with me as well. We had a great experience working together. He was really helpful, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also just from an accent point of view as well.
Finally, he's an Irish lad. So
because his dad's
Jerry, yeah.
Jerry is a big time sort of dialect coach, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that was a really
important part of it.
I thought it was a really important part of the transformation as well, transposing it to, I think the original script, he was American, but making him Irish.
Yeah, we debated, didn't we, for a while?
Yeah.
But then...
Well, you sent me that film that you did, Ned Kelly, and you were Irish in that.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that, I don't know, it's just something clicked at that point, and I thought I think the journey from Ireland to Las Vegas was a big one. It felt bigger than, I think originally it was in Pennsylvania, and it didn't feel like the stakes were so big.
Yeah, that's right. Louis was this young guy. He's from Dublin, and he really had a handle on, like, there's like, I get off the plane, I'm like, that's Flash, what? And it's a bit like that. So he had just the nuance of these little sounds, and we just alter things in the script as we went along just to make it feel really original and true to the character. And it's sort of like London in Dublin. You can go north, south, east, or west, and by a few hours, and the accent sounds completely different. So having him on set was great because he just really had an ear in for, and I was like listening and training with him as well before we went into it.
And Orlando stays in character. So any conversation, like if I could call him in the evening, like he'd be speaking with an Irish accent to me like, for the whole time. And I remember when we wrapped, you said thank you to the crew in your normal accent, and everyone looked at each other like, who the fuck is this?
It was funny.
We were like, wait, what's that English accent he suddenly got? We were so used to him just talking Irish for like, 6 weeks or whatever it was.
It's a really great way to, I commit 100% is the way I look at it. I don't think of myself as a method actor particularly, but like I just like to really commit. And when you do a dialect outside of set, you sort of play with it. You play with the way that the words would land and the rhythm and the sounds, and having Louis around was great because I could do that with him. So yeah, it was. I really enjoyed that.
I
really enjoyed it.
And of course, you had Katrina as well with her normal accent, and I remember at the beginning, she was like, do I have to speak Irish? I was like, yes, you do. She was like, oh, okay. So, but I think that as a couple, there was something very sweet about that. And also you helped each other. Well, she helped you as well. There would be a little, she was in between takes, there was often little discussions about delivery.
And she brought so much to it because like on the page, I think she brought a history that wasn't on the page that lent into the performance in a way that made it real.
Yeah.
Just like John came in with a completely different take on what that originally we thought we were going to get. We were all on set going, when John turned up, do you remember?
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the chair talking to him and stuff. I was after the first day and we were chatting and I didn't, and then after speaking to him and I came into the on set and I was like, oh, wow, he's doing this. And they're like, yeah, that's what he's doing. I'm like out of my mind, not really following anything, but it was sort of genius because he totally transformed, Boz's character from being a sort of, what would you say, like a bit of a,
well, he was written as a drill sergeant in the beginning, and then he basically took all those drill sergeant lines and he inverted them, which was actually really clever because he went against the type of what that character was.
He sort of seduced me.
Yeah,
it was sort of like a seduction and almost like it was like a three-way love story. He sort of becomes like my training partner is Katrina, and he sort of barges her out. He seduces me and pushes her out, and suddenly I'm in his web and doing everything that he says because I'm just desperate at that point to get to the finish line and make the weight so that I can live that dream.
He based the character on the George C. Scott character in The Hustler.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So we had long discussions about that character, and the weird thing is the follow-up, The Color of Money. He was actually one of his first roles.
No way!
So there was a real connection there, and
wasn't he in the original one?
The Hustler. He's not that old.
Oh, sorry.
You'll get upset if you say that. No, he was really young in The Color of Money, but then I think that was Scorsese in sort of, what was it, late 80s.
That's Tom Cruise, right?
That's Tom Cruise, yeah. And he played a pool shark, one of his first roles. So there was a real big connection to The Hustler, and actually that was actually one of our big references as sports movies go. That was kind of a really, because it's the dark side of sports, the gambling aspect of it, which obviously is a little bit, it's is what's touched upon here rather than money or gambling on your health and stuff. But yeah, it's that was one of our references, definitely.
On that note, I guess the fact that he does almost take on this kind of demonic character, it almost does feel like a fable, maybe. Like, the two characters are, what cost these decisions come at, and him being sort of tempted and lured back into this world, and what he's going to sacrifice. So what do you hope people will take away in that sense?
I hope people will go, wow, it's sort of like the degree to which I think people can relate to that thing of like they want a shot in life, they want their shot, and they don't want to look over their shoulder and go, well, I didn't do everything to do that. You know, I did everything possible to have that second shot at life or at the title or whatever that title is for whoever that person is, right? I think we see people, you know, swimming the chat, doing crazy, you know, climbing mountains, doing, you know, it's like it's a certain mindset, but I think it's something that's in all of us in some form, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think just on a different level, there's another way of reading the film, which is kind of how I've always thought of it in some respect, is that it's a little bit more schizophrenic than it's actually presented. And if you look at it as if it's all the voices that we have inside our head, i.e. there's a Boz in everybody, there's a Katrina in everybody, you know, and that becomes really interesting when you start looking at it through that prism, that actually those people could be the personalities of Boxer.
Yeah. That was, yeah.
And you know, Manny is the little boy that he used to be.
Yeah.
And the mother figure is, you know, is
they're all different aspects of his
internal. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting when you start looking at it that way. Because there are aspects that actually suggest that these people don't exist. And that becomes clearer on a second view, which is very interesting. And we put them in there. You know, like his mum calls him a puppy, he's a puppy. And then, you know, that Manny is referred to as, you know, look after Manny. And she said, he's fine. And he goes, he's a puppy. So there's an idea that actually, you know, Manny is Boxer. He's the bullied kid, you know, the scared kid. And, you know, Lupe is the guy that comes out to fight. He's the fighter. So Lupe is that part of his personality.
Kind of like a Fight Club type twist.
Yeah, but not so obvious, you know, I think it was done. I mean, I find those when I woke up, I call them, I woke up and it was a dream. So I remember when I was about 12 and thought, in my first English essay I wrote at the end, and I woke up and it was all a dream, and I thought I was so clever. And I got pulled up on it by the teachers saying it was the most unoriginal ending ever. So I think a lot of these films where they just go, oh, I woke up and it was a dream, and there's a few of them that sort of masquerade as something else. But yeah, I didn't want to do that. So in that respect, I like the fact that it's kind of left up to the viewer to figure out what they believe. You know, is Lupe really in the desert? Did that really happen? So I like that. I like it to be a little bit obscure and opaque.
Thank you so much for your time. Huge congrats on the movie, and I can't wait for everyone else to see it. Thanks so much.